Many thanks for staying with us. Now, if you've just joined us, this is Business Point on Global Television. And of course, I have with me in the studio my colleague who would also be co-anchoring this segment with me. Uya Gbomofoegwe, good morning.
It's a delight to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you join me.
How's business going?
Business is business.
Yeah, that's great. I can imagine. I mean, so much has happened in the world of business. We've seen issues around policy. Just, less than 24 hours ago, I was on Big Talk, dinner time program, as I'd like to call it, with Professor Biodun from Bayes University. We're also talking about issues around the economy, what the government is now doing to quickly jack up revenue base and all of that. So we're talking about the expert rates employment levy, the EEL, which is to say that the government is now making efforts, amongst other things, to ensure that the way expatriates come into the country, all right, is reviewed. And then there's more compliance, there's a more effective, more robust regulatory framework around it in such a way that you are not only being professional about all of that arrangement and the administration of it, government is able to make more money, because what it now means is, first of all, there's what we call expatriate quota, which means for every company who wants to bring people from outside of Nigeria to work for them, there's a threshold as to how many expatriates or how many expats they can bring, non-Nigerian expats, that is. But now we've seen for decades how that this expatriate quota has been breached for the most part. So the government is now saying we want to be more compliance conscious, right? We want to be more effective with our approach to regulation. We want to make more money from this. We're not hearing, with all of this, in the final analysis, government is looking at something in the neighborhood of $2 billion coming in every other year, which is good, because one of the things we talked about was also the deficit in infrastructure, how that we have been told we need like 30 trillion naira to drive infrastructure going forward. That's a whole lot of money. That money has got to come from somewhere, as entrepreneurs and business people will say. So I just thought we should run through that real quick before we jump in onto this conversation.
I would definitely get back to this conversation. But as regards the Binance retribution by the federal government, what do you make of this briefly?
And okay, it is neither here nor there for many people, because they feel, first of all, we're jumping the gun, because they say, look, we're looking for solutions in the wrong places. That's what some school of thought would say, because they say, look, Binance is not your problem with regards to dollar being strengthened against the Nigerian currency, which is the naira, which means you don't hold Binance responsible for the fact that your naira just steadily gets weakened against the greenback, as it's often called. So their argument is simple. Work on production, right? Work on monetary policy framework and so on and so forth. All right. Look at the domestic problems. Those are the underlying issues you have to deal with, not Binance. But again, maybe events have overtaken that argument now, because as it stands, we know for a fact that the two executives of Binance who had flown into the country sometime in the middle of last week had been taken into custody by the Nigerian authorities. We understand that directive came from the Office of the National Security Advisor. And now these executives were told didn't show up, basically to answer questions that were going to be posed to them by a certain committee of the House of Representatives. Now, Binance as an entity, a business entity that is trading in digital assets, has been accused by the Nigerian authorities of several things, including terrorism financing, money laundering. The crimes are heinous in nature when you take a look at the story. All right, but we need to drill down to the fact that Binance, for perspective, has been in business for since 2017. All right, so they've been here for a while. All right, they have a global foothold, if you like. They found traction across the world, including in Nigeria. Let's not forget that digital currencies are becoming more popular every other day. So the CBN is very concerned as to the specific ways in which Binance, all right, as an entity, influences the naira. All right, so we're still keeping an eye out to see how this pans out ultimately, whether from the CBN angle of it or from the angle of the security agencies. But in all, the idea is to say, let's be clear. Does Binance influence the naira in any way, and what are those ways in particular, and what can be done in this instant case? Because there's also the argument that Binance did not go through did not subject itself, all right, to compliance processes while it was coming into Nigeria to begin operations, which already is a concern whether the naira got weakened against the dollar or not. So it's a potpourri of several issues that have to be looked at going forward.
Okay, yes. So on this note, we have an economist, an expert who would be discussing further this issue. But let me just make sense of what this is about for those who do not understand yet. The federal government says it is demanding at least $10 billion as retribution from Binance for profiting from its illegal transactions in Nigeria, which we has just made some analysis about. Bayo Ononuga, the special advisor on information and strategy to President Bola Tinubu, disclosed this on Friday in an interview with the BBC. The development comes amid a crackdown on crypto exchange platforms, including Binance, by the federal government. Nigeria's government had reported detained 2 top executives of Binance on February 28, 2024, over allegations of price manipulations. Speaking during the interview, Ononuga said the cryptocurrency platform is causing massive losses for fixing exchange rates. He says the federal government is seeking such retribution from Binance for also fixing foreign exchange rates on its peer-to-peer platform. Joining me on the program to discuss this and other economic issues is Dr. Aliyu Audu, who is an economist. He's joining us via Zoom. Many thanks for joining us, Dr. Aliyu. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you join us.
It's a pleasure. My pleasure is mine. Thank you.
So, as we see that the federal government is seeking a retribution of $10 billion from Binance, what do you make of this development?
Yeah, I think looking at the macroeconomic effect, I think it's in line, because what you're looking at is that we have a very huge informal sector. And what people are doing is, we all know we are a consuming country. And what people are doing is taking Naira and in terms of money laundering and using it to buy dollars. That in an informal way, because obviously if you're going to use the CBN or you're going to use the banking system, it is not allowed. There's a limit to it. So people are using crypto to move illegal money from Naira to dollars and out of the country. This is really hurting the economy because we currently are a consuming country. We have a food import bill of over $10 billion, meaning we consume, we do not produce. And to further worsen it, we're moving Naira into dollars, driving the price of dollars. Depreciating the Naira. We already have our own problems in terms of we're not a producing country. We import milk, sugar. A lot of issues are going on. Machineries, we need dollars for even cars, we import cars. And then we have the Binance issue. So in my view, I think what the government is doing is in accordance. Any form of leakages that affect the economy, whether from the macro or the micro level, should be completely stopped. I'm 100% in support of the government for what they did. Any form of foreign interference that destabilizes the economy or the Naira should be stopped. Thank you very much.
Okay, I want us to look at the implications of for Nigerians who are users of this Binance platform. What are the implications?
Well, why are we using Binance? Binance is just crypto trading. Are we using it to improve the real sector? Are we using it to provide electricity? Are we using it to improve agriculture? What exactly is crypto trading doing to the economy of Nigeria? What is it helping? Is it helping to create jobs? What exactly is it doing? Until you are able to answer that, then I don't think there is a space for the growth of Binance and Binance-related activities in an economy like ours. Remember, we have an unemployment rate of over 30%. We are a dependent and import-dependent country. How is Binance helping us to substitute industrialization, substitute importation? How is Binance helping us to produce the food we eat? How is Binance helping us to produce sugar? Import sugar.
For Binance in today's economy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Audu, we can hear you all right. Can you hear us? Dr. Audu, we would like you to confirm that you can hear us clear. All right, I understand we lost stream there for, momentarily. Hopefully we reconnect with him. But you see this, I was just going to pop two questions, back to back to him, but hopefully we get a chance to do that, Queen. The issue of Binance is a bit broader than we are having the conversation right now, because we need to look at it from, with some context. We're looking at digital currency. We're looking at cryptocurrency as it's more popularly referred to. Because Binance, we must understand, is a company. It's like you talk about telecoms. You're not talking about different operators in the ecosystem, say in Nigeria, for example, right? So when you say Binance, you're just talking about one company, right? So how many other companies are we going to deal with? How many other entities are we going to deal with in this regard? What makes Binance a particular case in this instance? A reality that we're dealing with as a country, we need to look at all those. We also need to look at how that most times things like this end up either being politicized or in some sort of outcome that is shrouded in secrecy. And I'll give you a clear example real quick. Recall a few years ago, we had banned Twitter in this country, right? And then it was a back and forth between the federal government under the leadership of former President Muhammadu Buhari and the executives of Twitter. At that point, some preconditions had been advanced to Twitter to say, look, these are the grounds on which we can lift the ban on your service in the country. Now, fast forward to a point where, first of all, the federal government says you would have to have a corporate office in Nigeria, whether it's going to be in Lagos, in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Kano, in Enugu, wherever, but you've got to have a corporate office in Nigeria. And the second thing they had said at that time was Twitter will pay a certain amount of money. Now, memory doesn't serve me right to put a finger on the figures, but I know there were preconditions at the time. But the question is, how did that turn out? The only thing Nigeria knows as of today is that the ban had been lifted in 2022. Whether or not monies were paid, how much were paid, how much was paid, to whom those monies were paid, these are all, discussions for another day. So the point is, have we been able to even evolve a system that deals with all of these issues? So I'm hoping we have Dr. Audu back now.
Yeah, I'm back on. Thank you very much.
All right, great. We appreciate your patience with us. So I'm just going to ask a quick question so we can broaden the scope of this discussion real quick, Doc. First of all, Binance doesn't operate only in Nigeria. So you have Binance operations across the world. Talk to us as to how it happens that those other countries are not complaining about Binance to the best of our knowledge.
Okay, now you have to look at where other countries are. Let's talk about China, for example. China is doing extremely well. China has a very high per capita income. China is a manufacturing hub for the whole world. You see, China is doing extremely well. China is the second largest economy in the world. China has over 1,000 billionaires created from manufacturing and production. In Nigeria today, we have Chinese people building our firms, our roads, and all that. So you cannot compare us to developed countries. Nigeria is still in its infancy. We still need to protect our industry. We cannot allow a sector like Binance to start destabilizing the economy because we're still growing. We are still importing food. We don't even produce anything. We're relying on the Chinese to come and even build our roads. So we cannot afford to take anything that destabilizes the economy. We are not at that stage yet. We're not at the stage of the BRICS economy like Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. We're not at that stage. We're still growing. We're a developing country. So we need to protect infants. It's just like a baby. Before you let a baby go out into the society, he has to go through nursery, primary school, secondary school before he goes to university. So you can't ask a baby to go to university. That's what you're asking us to do. Nigeria we have a high unemployment rate of 30%. We used to have car manufacturing plants like Peugeot, Volkswagen before in Arewa, Texas, and now we don't have that. So we need to focus on growing local content, local industry. We cannot jump the gun. We cannot begin to start competing in the tech industry through Binance while the foundation of the economy is still suffering. So we need to forget about Binance for now and focus on developing the Nigerian economy. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to ask you, I'm going to ask you a second question. Queen will jump in on the conversation afterwards. I mean, a few years ago, while we had former President Muhammadu Buhari in office, of course, former CBN governor, talking about Godwin Emefiele, had banned cryptocurrency, which is the same frame within which Binance falls, all right, cryptocurrency. At that time, the CBN says, look, cryptocurrency was a threat to the Nigerian currency, as a matter of fact, to the entire Nigerian economy. That was under the leadership of former President Muhammadu Buhari. However, the former Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, himself, a consummate economist, had argued to say, look, an outright ban was an error, it was miscalculated and counterproductive. Therefore, he recommended strict regulatory arrangements around the administration of cryptocurrency. So, Dr. Audu, where do you stand in this divide? Are you still there, Doc?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you all right, very well.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to go right from the top. So I was saying, under former President Muhammadu Buhari, we had former CBN governor, Emefiele, under whose leadership crypto had been banned in Nigeria at the time because he said it was ultimately a threat to the Nigerian economy, I mean, largely then, in particular to the Naira. However, the vice president at the time, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, himself, I mean, consummate in law and economics, had argued that rather than ban crypto altogether, why don't you regulate and create compliance framework around it? So I was asking, where do you stand in this divide?
Okay, well, at the time, first of all, Professor Osinbajo is not an economist. He's a lawyer. He's a well-seasoned, sound lawyer, not an economist. Secondly, at that time, we had dollar under control. They practiced a fixed exchange system whereby the government set a cap on the dollar, exchange rate of the dollar. At that time, I believe it was about 700. If you wanted to buy, there was PTA, there was business travel allowance, BTA. So dollar was readily available and it did not skyrocket to $2,000. Now, 2,000 naira to a dollar. Now, this is a different administration. And you can see the changes the current administration is trying to do. They're trying to float the exchange rate system. And obviously, you notice that the Naira now is exchanging at 1,700, 1,800 per dollar. That is and that's bringing inflation. That is rocking the economy. Two different times. You cannot compare Osinbajo's time and policies to this time and policies. So now that Nigerians are crying, there's a lot of hardship because of the increased value of the dollar. We need to bring in measures. We need to cut any form of leakages that threatens the Naira. We need to cut any form of leakages that brings about hardship to Nigerians. And unfortunately, Binance is one of those leakages that does not really support the real economy. Let me ask you a question. What economic activity does Binance support in Nigeria? Does it help agriculture? Does it support manufacturing? It is a form of leakage that people use to take out illegal money out of Nigeria. So why do we need it? That's the question I'm going to ask you. Thank you.
All right, great. I think Queen wants to just pop a few questions at this point.
Okay, and now, Dr. Audu, we know that in a bid to regulate, the cryptocurrency market, Binance is just one of the many platforms, many other platforms that we have. Now, we want to take a look. Do you think that same measures should be put into other platforms like Binance, or is it just Binance alone?
As far as I'm concerned, anything that threatens the economy of Nigeria in terms of cryptocurrency should be discouraged. Because what you find out is that after every I'll be very frank with you, after every allocation, back allocation, there's an appreciation or depreciation of the Naira to the dollar, because people are now taking Naira to exchange for the dollar and taking them out of the country. So anything that threatens, if cryptocurrency threatens the stability of the economy, if crypto threatens the stability of the Naira, I'm afraid we should take it out. Let's focus on the real economy. Let's create jobs for Nigerians. Let's reduce inflation. Let's make food available. I'm not sure crypto can do that. We should not jump the gun. We're still babies. We are a developing economy with unemployment rate of 30%. We have one of the worst poverty in the world. So what are we doing focusing on crypto? We should learn to crawl before we walk. We should learn to grow the economy before we talk about crypto. That is my view. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Doc, this is quite an expansive conversation, no doubt about it. But I was just going to ask, when it's all said and done, I mean, regardless of how this whole hula baloo between the federal government of Nigeria and Binance turns out, will that be far-reaching enough? Will that answer all the questions, or at least the major questions around the weakening, the continual weakening, I should say, of the Naira?
Yeah, very good question. In the long run, as I said before, we have a food import bill of $10 billion. We import sugar, we import food, while we can
Well, that was a loss of stream, apparently. But Dr. Audu was making quite some very salient points. And it's very evident from what he has said. I mean, his narrative so far, that he doesn't have a problem with crypto per se, but he's saying we must be smart enough, essentially. I mean, this is not me quoting him, I'm just trying to paraphrase. I mean, be able to understand where we are as an economy and not try to compare ourselves with the Asian tigers, China, Singapore, Vietnam, and the likes. And then when you come to come to the Americas, you talk about Brazil, for example, you talk about Mexico, and then you even come back home to the so-called global South, as they call us, Africa. You see South Africa and so on and so forth. He's saying, in his words, we are a baby. And as such, we must appreciate where we are today and be able to use that as a platform to drive the right initiatives. And he feels very strongly on the final note that one of the things we have done in that direction is to quickly address the issue around Binance. Otherwise, we'll continue to weaken our Naira, shoot ourselves in the foot.
Very salient points and stand Dr. Audu has. I believe we're now joined by Dr. Audu.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm back on.
Yes, I can hear you. Please, you can go on.
Okay, well, is there any other question?
You asked the question.
Yes, I was just going to say that as it stands today, we understand that when it's all said and done, I mean, there are pretty good chances that the Binance executives will still have to face the House of Representatives panel to answer very, very salient questions. But whatever that may mean, the allegations against Binance now as an entity, a business entity that is, are very weighty. I mean, they're talking about terrorism financing, money laundering, and so on and so forth. Ordinarily, you and I would think this ought to be purely economic in nature, but we know how cases like this always turn out. At some point, it gets politicized. We had seen, for example, how even a telecoms operator in this country had been fined to the tune of over 1 trillion at a time, again, under the former leadership, the leadership of former President Muhammadu Buhari. And Nigerians are not even clear how that panned out. What do you think? I mean, you are an economist who comes with a lot of experience under your belt. How do you think, ideally, a matter like this should be addressed going forward? Legal, economic, political? What should be the best approach to it?
Well, this happens every day. Yesterday, I was watching CNN, and I think was it Google or Microsoft was fined $2 billion by the European Union, by the EU for breaching consumer rights or something like that. So this happens when you find that a particular company is interfering with the economy of the country. The best way to bring them to deal with it is to fine them. You have to have measures in place to find them. And in my view, this is purely economic. I don't think it's okay if it was adding positively to Nigerian economy without affecting our economy. I don't think we would have gotten to this point. So I believe it's purely economic. However, other people want to under-explain it is up to them. But it's economy. Binance is affecting the Nigerian economy, and it needs to be stopped. Not just Binance, any company that affects the Nigerian economy needs to be stopped. It's done by the EU, it's done by China, it's done by America. So why can't we do it? We should do it because Nigeria, the interest of Nigeria is paramount. The interest of the common man is paramount, not a big company like Binance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aldu. You've made very salient points, and you've well articulated your focus. We're just going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at other economic issues, especially the rising cost of living. We'll take a quick break. Business Points continue shortly. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sorry, I'm being loud. I'm on mute.
Many thanks for staying with us. Now, if you've just joined us, this is Business Point on Global Television, and we're live in the nation's capital, Abuja. And before the break, we had been speaking with Dr. Aliyu Audu, who is an economist, and he has spoken extensively about the fine on Binance by the federal government over illegal transactions and other issues. Now, we're just going to be talking about the rising cost of living, economic hardship. As we see, Nigerians have reacted. A lot of people have, come to talk about the rising cost of living. If you go on the street and you have a conversation, you can barely have a conversation without people telling you about how difficult it is to, basically survive, as the prices of goods and food items have most likely tripled. The things you buy for a certain price today, it most likely looks like it's happening in minutes and seconds, and the prices are rising. And there have been efforts, no doubt, by the federal government to ensure that some sorts, the hardship is a bit elevated. You know, we see measures given by the federal government to cushion the effects of the hardship, like palliatives that we see the custom dishing out bags of rice for.
That at the federal level.
Federal level, yes, federal level for meager fees, meager sums, and I hear that at some point it became free, and then you know, with some of the dramas that come with it. Now, my question, I believe we have Dr. Audu join us. I would want to hear his take on this, the economic hardship in general, and then the efforts by the federal government, the palliative, how sustainable is that measure, palliatives given, how long can that stay? What other ways should we be looking at it from?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, obviously, we understand that, and the price of petrol went up, and as the price of petrol went up, other goods and services went up. That brought about inflation, cost push inflation. That's what we have been dealing with. And the government has been trying to bring in palliatives, electric cars, giving states money to cushion that effect, until much more recently, that is the game. Dollar was floated on the market, and the price of dollar started increasing, and everybody attributed, inflation went up, everybody attributed to increase inflation to the increase in dollar. Even if you go to the market to buy vegetables, the vegetable woman will tell you that price of vegetable has increased because of the dollar. This is what we call cost push inflation. Now, and some people are misrepresenting it. What I can say is we're not a producing country. The long run effect, regardless of the palliatives that the government is giving, which is a step in the right direction, it is a short-term measure. What is the long-term measure? The long-term measure is for us to look inward, to improve local content, to start production, to go look into agriculture. The other day on CNN, it was reported that Africa has enough agrarian land to produce 60% of the world's food. What does that tell you? Senegal produces sugar and imports sugar. One of the largest exports of Senegal is sugar. Nigeria, we only produce 2% of the sugar we consume. We have conglomerates like Dangote, BUA, importing sugar. This is where our dollars are going. Well, we can produce. Why can't we produce? There's been a lot of policies put forward by the federal government to promote production, but that has failed because of this conglomerate. So the long run thing we need to do is to focus on local production. We need to start producing what we eat. We need to start producing what we drive. We need to start producing what we wear. The Chinese are the largest importer of textiles into this country. We used to have 110 textiles companies. Now we don't have them anymore. So we need to focus in the long run on local production, local content. And that's why I said that foreign companies like Binance, like Toyota, like lots of them need to be stopped. We need to promote local production. Companies like Innoson, the other day, the National Assembly members ordered over 100 Toyota cars for themselves. That is wrong. You're not supposed to do that because you're carrying our jobs and taking it to Japan. You're supposed to buy from local producers to create jobs like Innoson Motors. And if they don't have the capacity, we should support them by giving them loan for expansion to create jobs and for us to consume what we produce. That is how other countries have supported their companies. That is how Korea supported Hyundai. That is how the United States supported GM. That is how Chinese is supporting Chinese companies. We are not doing that. We are relying on all these foreign companies, and that's why we are carrying our jobs and our money and taking it to foreign countries where we are remaining poor. So the long-run policy we need to adopt is an import substitution industrialization. That is the way to move Nigeria forward. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to ask this. I mean, this is me being curious, not an attempt to deflect from the basic conversation. As it stands today, Dr. Aliyu, is it correct to say Nigeria is being faced with food shortage, or is it just a matter of us dealing with the reality and the repercussions of misplaced priorities?
I think that's what it is, misplaced priorities. Because if you go to your garden, we can all grow food at the back of our house. So what does that tell you? We are blessed with. We have the rubber in Stapele, we have Benue is a food basket. The other day I went to Benue State. Everywhere you go is trees and trees, orchards and orchards of mango, of orange trees. But yet we are importing chivita from abroad. We are because we like articles or goods of ostentation. We like luxury goods from abroad. Everybody says, "Ah, this one is from London." We are happy. That is not the way we should go. We need leaders that will correct this. We need to look inward. So you're correct. It's misplaced priority. Are we blessed? We are more than blessed. Even Israel does not have what we have in terms of agriculture. Even if you eat mango and throw it at the back of your backyard, it will grow. In Israel, this doesn't happen. They are growing their vegetables in the air, tapping nutrients from the air. But we will just eat and throw it at the back. Go to your village now, everywhere is palm trees. So we are very blessed, no doubt about it. Are we using it? I don't think we are. So it's a situation of misplaced priority. If not, we can feed ourselves and have it. We had the granite pyramids, they disappeared. Can't you see that when the Buhari government started banning importation of rice, Nigerians, we started producing our rice now. Before, 5 years ago, local rice has stones. Now, local rice is even competing with foreign rice. This is what we need to do in other sectors. And Nigeria will get better. So it's the concept of misplaced priorities, and we need the leaders to push through made in Nigerian products. Thank you very much.
On the final note, Doc, state of emergency has been declared with regards to food security. Do you think that was just, at best, political rhetoric, or you think the president, beyond sincerity or purpose, will find a will to drive it to a logical conclusion?
Well, I think sincerity of purpose, because in actual fact, we're not doing enough. We should be exporting food right now. And if we're not doing that, then obviously there is something wrong. So declaring a state of emergency and any form of declaration for us to reach our potential, I think, is in the right order. Food is supposed to be cheap. We're not supposed to be, food is not, everybody in Nigeria is supposed to be fat on food, because if you go abroad, they don't even, everything is genetically modified. The food you eat in Nigeria is 10 times healthier than the food you eat in London. And that's the truth, because they have to genetically modify their own good foods to mass produce. It grows in our backyard naturally. So declaring a food emergency is true, because we need to be exporting baskets of food out of this country. That's where we need to be. Anything short of that, we're not being honest to ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Audu. It's been a pleasure, an absolute delight having you on the program. We do hope that you grace our platform again.
I will, anytime I'm invited. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. And that's where we call it a wrap on this segment. We'll just take a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at the business desk. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, on what's happening on the business desk, the governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, has faulted the Central Bank of Nigeria for raising the monetary policy rate by 22.75%. Obaseki contended that the decision is not the answer to the ongoing economic challenges in the country. He supported boosting local production to meet the demand for goods and services. The governor gave this opinion in a speech as a guest speaker during the annual dinner of Edo Zone Bankers Committee in Benin City, the Edo State capital, as shared in a video posted on his official Twitter account. The National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS, has asked the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, to extend the deadline for blocking unlinked subscribers to March 31st, 2024. The NCC had directed all telecommunications operators to bar phone lines of unlinked subscribers from February 2024. The directive, effective February 28, 2024, is expected to affect over 42 million inactive phone numbers and 3 million active lines. Deolu Ogubanjo, president of NATCOMS, said the initiative of the NCC to capture Nigerians is a step in the right direction due to security reasons. He says the policy is a great way for the country to develop its database. He also pleaded with the Commission to ensure they extend the deadline till March 31st, 2024 for every subscriber to be captured. Efforts by the federal government to curb the rising inflation will lead to 5 trillion naira cash mop-up from the banking industry as the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, implements the hike in banks' cash reserve ratio, CRR, to 45%. The CRR, which represents bank cash reserves for purposes of meeting cash obligations and demand, was moved from 32.5% to 45% in apparent bid to curtail inflation. I will just take more reports from Kikelomo Okere.
Welcome to Business Report on Prime News. The Central Bank of Nigeria says it has concluded its sales of government security, issuing 1.053 trillion naira in short time. It was followed by a virtual meeting with foreign portfolio investors. CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso used both meetings to set a detailed strategy to curb inflation, stabilize the exchange rate, and spur confidence.
We apologize for that malfunction. Well, this is what we call it a wrap on Business Points today. Many thanks for staying with us on the program. Do join us same time tomorrow for another episode of Business Point. I am Queen Agaba, and from me and my colleague, we say have a wonderful afternoon.